Welcome to the Writing with Purpose podcast, where I, Anna Woolliscroft, chat with fellow writers and outdoor enthusiasts about how we can embrace creativity and curiosity to live a life full of adventure that doesn't feel like hard work. I delve into exploratory conversations about my two loves in life, writing and nature connection, as part of my mission to share the well-being benefits they both bring. It's wonderful to have you here today. In today's Writing with Purpose podcast, I'm chatting with Dr Jill McGarry, the Sleep Better Doctor, about sleep hygiene, our biological clocks, and the role nature plays in getting a good night's sleep. Hi, Jill. Welcome to the Writing with Purpose podcast. It's fabulous to have you here. So just before we get stuck into talking about sleep and how we can get great sleep and some of the issues that people struggle with and some of the benefits and techniques and things, I'll introduce you. So you are Dr. Jill McGarry. Yeah, you have over 30 years experience in supporting people's psychological well-being. So you are officially a consultant clinical psychologist, or better known as the sleep doctor, which is a great way, I think, to remember you. So yeah, you sort of, with your clients, you say that you develop and apply a personal blend of strategies so that you go from exhausted to energized in the most effective way, which I think is a brilliant way to sort of explain how people might feel when they don't get enough sleep. It is that exhaustion.
Yeah. My other way is sometimes saying, I don't want you to just rise in the morning, but I want you to shine throughout the day, because it evades every part of the day, doesn't it, when it doesn't work?
It does, yeah. And yeah, brilliant. So yeah, shine, keep your light on for the entire day instead of just rising in whatever state you
Plodding along like, oh, I can't cope. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah, we want energy. We want to work at our best, don't we?
We do, exactly. And yeah, I'm a big believer in it's the amount of energy that we have that sort of keeps us going, in those peaks and troughs of being aware of what that energy feels like and when we're depleting. Yeah. So you work with a lot of different people, from children to adults, from individuals in a corporate setting as well, on a group basis. And you've got an absolute abundance of therapy-based training behind you. So you really are the sleep better doctor, the expert. So Jill, I'd love to invite you to just share a little bit about your journey, give us a little overview of the business, and what sort of led for you kind of focusing on helping people to get better sleep.
Oh, no, thank you very much for inviting me, Anna. It's a privilege to be on your podcast. I mean, we've had some great chats, haven't we, along the way. So thank you, really appreciate it. My journey probably started about 28 years ago when I was working. I first qualified as a clinical psychologist from Liverpool Uni, and I was working with people with learning disabilities and autism. And we had quite a few clients come through as referrals for struggling with their sleep. And we began to realise that people with Down syndrome struggle with a thing called sleep apnea. So most people talk today about, oh, I'm struggling with my sleep, and they're thinking it's insomnia. But there is a bigger killer, I suppose, in the sleep world, and that's called sleep apnea. And that's for those people that can't breathe when they're sleeping at night. It might start off as a snore, but then somewhere in the night they might gasp for air, and it's that gasping for air because they can't get enough oxygen into their body that's the problem. And it happens for people with Down syndrome because their tongues are wider and thicker than the average person, so it sits and blocks the airway more, and also they have shorter and often stockier necks. So again, the airway is slightly blocked by that tongue being bigger and then the neck being thinner inside. So I worked with Manchester Sleep Service so we could make reasonable adjustments for people with Down syndrome and get the help that they needed. And then I realised that people with autism have a whole different reason why they're not sleeping well. Lots to do with their sensories being very sensitive and their ability to communicate being challenged in a different way, as well as them being stressed by different things in the day. So I became uber interested in sleep for those two client groups. And then I had a car crash, and it activated some extra pathways in my heart that I didn't even know that I had. And what I could have had an operation to get rid of those pathways. I could have taken medication, but they also suggested I could try and work out what triggers it and try and stop doing those things. So I was like, yeah, I'm really into being bodily aware, self-aware, doing the best for yourself, because we're all different, we all have different needs. So I worked out over the next few months that 3 things caused it. And if all 3 things were in place, then it would definitely happen. So I'd have to be either excited or anxious about something, so my adrenaline was up. I'd have to have too much coffee. So and I love coffee. I love a Starbucks particularly. But any coffee shop, the coffee house is another good one in the Northwest that I love. And then the third one was sleep deprived. Now, as a new consultant clinical psychologist, team of 30, definitely overworking myself, bringing up 2 kids with my husband working away during the week. So I was definitely sleep deprived. Anybody in the NHS is likely to be sleep deprived, because we're asked to do more than our usual contracted bag of goodies. So I decided I'm going to have to get better at sleep rather than the other 2. I didn't want to not get excited,
Yeah.
or anxious, because it's good for you. And I still love my coffee, not just for the coffee, but also for my friends. And that's a challenge in itself. People go, sleeping and coffee, they don't go together. You shouldn't do both, but you can use it as a reason. If you use coffee in the right way and you understand the science behind it, it can be really beneficial. So I then learned how to not sleep deprive myself, worked really hard at it. And then it just grew. People began to know me for being the person that knows about autism and sleep, learning disability and sleep. And then I worked at the Chorley perinatal team and helped the mother and baby unit with the mum sleeping, because I had nursery nurses helping the baby sleep, but nobody helping the mum. So we did some great work there. And then I was asked to work at Manchester Sleep Service again. So I came full circle and went back to where I started. But I wasn't just doing the reasonable adjustments for people with Down syndrome. I was helping the whole unit think about psychologically people's sleep. So rather than just giving people a kit called CPAP, which helps people with sleep apnea. It was to help people with a range of problems. So I was helping people with sleepwalking, sleep talking, nightmares, narcolepsy. So that means when you just drop off to sleep, as well as the trauma of having to wear the mask for CPAP, because it's like a positive airflow mask that you have to wear in the night, which isn't easy. And then maybe some other things they could do instead. So I became known for this. And then you just get, I don't know what the word is in the NHS, not burnout, but kind of like you begin to realise as time goes along that the NHS is there to fight the fires, not to be proactive. And I decided actually I'd like to be more proactive. I'd like to help companies do a better job to help their staff, because they'll benefit from it. I'd want to help people on a one-to-one when they want to improve their performance, not just deal with the problems that they've got. I want to be working in schools and in charities when people are talking about their mental health. And if we can fix the sleep, it often helps with people's, well, it invariably helps with people's mental health and well-being. So yeah, that's a long story, sorry.
No, it's fascinating, because I think, you've worked in so many different areas as well. And, sleep, you've always come across the fact that sleep and having sufficient sleep and quality sleep is a factor in improving different aspects of different groups of people's lives. And the fact that you've had that experience yourself as well, and you've had that sort of lived experience, as they say, and you've been able to do that research from your own point of view and put different techniques in place. It's it's fascinating. You haven't just sort of gone and studied something and then here we go, everything. It's you've drawn that experience and put together what you offer from so many different facets almost. And so yeah, and you can tell you sort of you light up. Oh, dropping my pen here. You light up as you talk about it as well. So you're equally fascinated and bought into each client group that you work with. So yeah, no, and I think everybody can benefit from more sleep.
The problem is people get lumped together, and that different groups do need different advice. And I think we're only at the beginning journey of understanding sleep, and that it hopefully will over time enable us to go, oh, actually, I fit with that group for this part aspect. And actually, I need to draw on this knowledge and skills and strategies from that group of people. As we become more self-aware and realise our environment as well as our internal bodies affect us.
Yeah, definitely. I think you said a key thing there about the environment. The environment to, things can be, particularly stress and anxiety can be situational, can't it? So, and then coming back to something that you said earlier about, paying attention to the body feelings, the body sensations, being aware of that. Because I think we can quite often, apart from sight, we can kind of not lose as in going deaf or blind as such, but we can lose touch with our senses.
Yeah.
And I think, part of doing that research and finding those triggers that you mentioned as well, working out what it is that's triggering you to have that excitement and the anxiety, then, all of that can come from the body sensations and our general senses. So just having that awareness as well, I think is
Yeah.
fascinating for anything. And with the sleep too, before we got on, we were talking a little bit about energy as well, weren't we? And all of those things, energy, senses, the body, the mind, everything's connected. And if we just, it's not simple, but to make it seem simple, we connect the dots, then we can see where something's been deprived, or maybe we're overdoing something, and that's the start where we can
Yeah.
improve.
I often talk about a 90-minute cycle of energy throughout the day as well as during the night. And we're at high energy at the top, and then 45 minutes later we're at a low energy, and then we go high again. And that's exactly the same with our sleep cycles in the night. People go, oh, yeah, I go through REM, dream sleep and deep sleep. But if they realise they went through that 4 or 5 times in the night, depending on how many hours they get, and to know that it follows that same energy level, then it can be really enlightening and make them think differently about what they're doing when they're sleeping.
Yeah, definitely. I think when we first met, we were talking about dreams, weren't we? Because
Mm.
I journal a lot about my dreams, and you don't just have one dream throughout the night. You can have 2 or 3, maybe more, and it's part of that pattern gets repeated. And um, I find the whole thing fascinating. Is it your alpha waves or your alpha state is supposed to be one of the best to kind of get in touch with your subconscious mind, which from a writing point of view is great for those ideas and to let your intuition flow a little bit. And even, you're asking yourself at that time, how can I get better sleep? And who knows, you tell yourself the right answer.
Yeah, and you know what? We do know that there was a big piece of research about helping students get through exams, and those that were helped to think about their exam the next day just before they went to sleep and journalize it, write it down if possible. They actually did better in the exams, and they spoke about, and those that did the best in the exams were those that spoke about them remembering that they dreamt about the exams.
Ah,
So how powerful are our dreams and our sleep? But then that other bit you said earlier, Anna, about, can we get more of it? It's a really hard thing to do, that, our sleep is our sleep. And what we do know is if we're very physical one day, and it's not our norm, then actually our deep sleep will fill more of our sleep time because we need to physically recover from that day. So our brains are really clever. We don't say it to our brains. We don't go to sleep with an intention to dream less and physically recover more, but that's exactly what our body will take. It always takes the physical needs first, and the dream and the emotional recovery from the day happens second.
mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting you should say that, because I'm training at the moment for an event. So I'm running, and my distance has been creeping up. And not every time. So again, it's about finding the variables, isn't it? And what's sort of what's missing or not during those times. So I've been sort of working my way up from running 7 or 8 miles to about 20, because my event is an ultra. which is 30 plus
Ooh.
miles. So it's interesting that on a couple of the 20 miles that I've gone, I've not felt as tired as when I did, I think it was 16, but I wasn't fueling myself properly. So afterwards, I was so tired. I think I fell asleep in the afternoon. So yeah, you were saying there about, looking after the physical first. It was almost as though my body was saying, you need to sleep.
Yeah, your body needs to grab it where it can.
Yeah, I'd not drunk enough water. I'd not eaten properly on this longer run. I just thought, oh, it's only half an hour or so extra. I'll be fine. But that was enough for my body then to, shut down in some ways, I think.
Yeah. And I think we don't trust our bodies enough these days, do we? You noticed it, you realised your body needed to sleep that afternoon, but so often people go, oh, I feel like I need a nap. But it's not the English thing to do, is it? So it is rare when somebody naps in England. I love a nap. And there are some famous people that I love saying are famous for napping. Claudia Winkleman is my favourite person for it. She just loves a good nap, but that means she's just really bodily aware. And not only that, she kind of, like you're trying to look after your body. So she knows that quite a lot of creativity will come from having a nap. And she's sewn it into her day because she has a busy day and a busy media life, that actually she does nick time from the beginning of the day and the end of the day. So she has to catch it somewhere else. And like you with your running, the British rowing team have learnt to nap. And they've been taught by a guy called Nick Littlehales, who realised and worked with them, are in the fact that they all had to get up at 5 to row together. So no matter whether it was your preference or it fitted with your lifestyle or your job, they all had to do it together. So 5 o'clock was the best time to row together. It meant that lots of the team were sleep deprived unless they tried to grab it somewhere else. So he taught them all to have a nap. And haven't we done well in the Olympics for rowing?
Yeah.
So, it just shows you that if we begin to accept our body's needs, for some of those rowers, it took them 6 months to begin to nap, and it was just resting their body to begin with. Some other people it was easy for them to get straight into napping. So yeah, it depends on who we are, whether we do it easily, but just resting the body and knowing that your body needs it, or just knowing that your body the next day needs more water and more nutrients the next time you were to do it is a vital part of all of this. So I often ask people what chronotype they are. So that's a very posh word for just saying, are you a lark or an owl?
Okay.
But actually, we should be asking, are you a lark, an owl, or a bear? So the population is broken into 3 groups of people: those that like nights, those that like mornings, and the bears like a bit of both, but they also like a nap. So that's why some of the rowers found it easy to nap, because they were probably instinctively bears. But in the UK, you're not allowed to be one, are you? You snooze, you
No.
lose is one of Britain's best phrases, which is chronic for our health.
Yeah, some of these phrases just need to be put in the rubbish bin, don't they?
Yeah,
It's so, I mean, everybody's different. You've said a few times everybody's different, but I suppose if it's, if somebody is working a 9 to 5, it's difficult for them to get a nap during the day when maybe they would need to. I guess if they got into a routine where they got back from work and maybe they had some food, or before food they had a little nap, that would just sort of top them up a little bit. Would it be fair to say?
It could do. The other problem you would have if you had it after work, it would be like virtually straight away. I would say, because you wouldn't want to eat into what we call your sleep pressure. So you need to have enough sleep pressure, lack of sleep, to help you get off to sleep. And without that sleep pressure, so the closer we have a nap to our bedtime, the more we will have ate into that sleep pressure. So that's why people in Asia, in Spain, they have a siesta, and they always do it around lunchtime. So because they want to do it so it doesn't eat into that sleep pressure that we've caused.
I think if I was to listen to my body, and sometimes I have done this, but it's usually if I have really felt under the weather and felt ill, or as though something's, I'm going to come down with something. But I have that lull, which I suppose is a bit of a sign, isn't it? If you have that afternoon lull, perhaps. And so, yeah, anytime between about 2 and 4 for me, that would kick in. and then I seem to, I'm alert and I'm ready again to get going sort of 5 o'clock-ish.
Yes.
So that would be a good thing for me to
Yeah,
pay a
between
bit
2
more
and
attention
4 is
to.
a good time, yeah. And even to do
Mm,
it, if that's when you feel the lull is kicking in, then that'd probably but we, like you said, we can't all do it, can we?
no.
I worked with an electrician, and he was getting up at 5 in the morning and he was really struggling with his sleep. So when he was trying to sleep in his bed, he wasn't getting enough sleep, but getting up at 5 was making it worse. And he would just be distraught by lunchtime. So I said, well, why don't you just go and sit in your van and get either 20 minutes of sleep, or if depending on the job you can get 90, it's usually one or the other and nothing in between, then that would be great. So he started doing that and he got so much more energy back. But do you know what? A while later, he started to realize that how important his sleep was to him and what a difference getting that little bit extra was, that he decided to change his job so that he could,
Ah,
because he was an owl and he didn't like the early mornings, it didn't suit him. So sometimes people make radical changes because they realize how important, what a big difference getting good sleep for the whole of your life, not just for the next 6 months or the next week, but longevity is such an important thing today.
yeah, and I think it's important to realize as you grow up how we need, more sleep. Is it, am I right in saying that teenagers ideally need about 11 hours sleep or something like that? And yet they're staying up late at night because they think it's cool.
Oh, you see, that's really interesting. And it isn't just cool to stay up late at night. Genetically, not only do teenagers need a lot of sleep, but they become very owlish. So
Mm,
when we get into our 70s, we become very larkish. But at teenage years, we become very owlish. So they want to stay up. And it is right for them to stay up. Their biology is telling them to stay up. It meant evolutionary wise that our youngest and most physically and mentally able people were able to push things late at night when the rest of us were wanting to have a sleep. They wanted to go off and be a bit more autonomous. So being up at night would allow it. It makes complete sense that it's not just a cool thing to do. It's what they need to do. The only
yeah.
problem we've got is today's society is very larkish. It likes everybody to start the day between 8 and half 8. In fact, I've been to a couple of meetings recently that started at 7, and in the NHS, our day started at 8 o'clock, if not earlier. So, but that's not what kids need. So I would love it if we followed California and we started school later in the day. Later the teenagers, the closer to 10 o'clock, the better. And in fact, what they found out in California is if the kids go to school staggeringly later and later, then the teachers have some personal time. They can get some admin done before they go to work, sorting out some bits and pieces. But also it stops the bullying, because usually it's the older kids bullying the younger kids. And if they're not going into school and leaving school at the same time, the opportunities are lessened, because you're sticking with your age group more specifically.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a whole sort of like wave of interest in our circadian rhythms. I don't know if you've heard about it, and
Mm,
living, with nature and trying to sync in with the clocks. I think that's really difficult when you live in a country like Scandinavia,
yeah.
where it's the dark or light. I think that's hard, but the closer you are to a good amount of 8 hours sleep, and the better. And if you can follow getting the right sunlight at the start of the day and the end of the day, the better.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
you were saying this before when we first met, weren't you, about going out, was it going outside?
Yeah.
The first thing before you get stuck into anything, just so that you can have an influx of that natural light,
Mm. Yeah.
to kickstart, almost like, it's a bit like an ignition of a car, I suppose, isn't it? Just, turning us in the right way,
Mm.
to get going. But yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense what you say about developing. And I didn't realize that about California. That's fascinating. We were talking about Australia the other day, and I think they
Mhm.
start school a lot earlier, don't they? So that they
Mhm.
can either have a longer break during the hot weather, but I suppose even that, it's a good thing that they're avoiding that hot weather, but they're not necessarily doing the right thing for your body and
No.
sleep, for the children waking up so early.
Yeah. Yeah. And I
Mm,
bet you the Aborigine community would not be agreeing with that. They love really being in tune with your bodies and what your body needs, and nature and the environment. I bet you that's really polar with what the local community would suggest will be useful to them. But it's weird, isn't it? Because Australia are quite ahead on many other aspects, and that their stress levels are lower than ours, because they do take having a balanced life rather than being uber productive at work as the main purpose.
Yeah, take it more seriously. It's that whole sort of almost westernized developed world, city living versus the countryside living, and that ecology aspect, which it probably leads us on. You've touched on nature a little bit already, but what role does nature play in us getting a good night's sleep?
It plays a massive role. So we have a part of our brains called the supercharismatic nuclei, or some people say, is it supercalifragilistic? And I go, no. But it's similar. And I shorten it, and it is shortened to the letters SCN, and we call it the grandfather clock. So it's a part of our brain called the SCN, and it needs daylight to reset it every day. It's like, if you think of a grandfather clock, if you don't keep winding it, it will slowly start to lose the time. And our brains are exactly the same. If you put us in a cave, and we lived in a cave for a month, we wouldn't know what time of day it is. We wouldn't be able to work it out, because our brains instinctively work on a 25-hour clock. So it needs that sunlight to reset it every day to 24 hours. Otherwise, we will get out of sync. So we definitely need it. But it's the grandfather clock connecting to the other parts of the body. We call them the peripheral clocks. So quite a lot of our organs have clocks, and they send messages up to the brain, as well as messages coming down from the SCN to the body parts to say what they need to do depending on the time of the day. And then some people say to me, our body parts do not have clocks. And I go, they do. They definitely do. Our heart has a body clock, so we're more likely to have a heart attack at 2 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Our uterus, as women, has a clock. That's why women give birth in the morning more than any other time of the day. Ask a midwife, and they'll definitely be delivering lots of babies around 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. And for everybody, my favourite one is that everybody's bowel has a clock, but our bladder doesn't. So our bladder just has a valve that when it's full. So we might get up in the night because our bladder's full to go and have a wee. But do you get up in the night to go for a poo?
No, it's funny how you started talking about that. I was thinking the bowels definitely have a clock.
Yeah.
Unless you eat the wrong thing, and then
Yes. Oh yeah, and have a dodgy tummy or something. Yeah. But that's why we need the daylight. If the daylight's not giving us that indication, then our bodies will get out of sync, and therefore it's hard to do things on our best performance if we haven't got our bodies in sync with our minds. And then on top of it, we need that sunlight to send a material called lux through our optic nerves into our brains to make a substance called melatonin that lots of people have talked about. And people are beginning to say melatonin's the one tablet you need to take to sleep better. And it's not the case. Melatonin only helps you get off to sleep. It doesn't help you stay asleep. So all those insomniacs that are finding it difficult staying asleep, they're taking melatonin, and it's got no effect on that mechanism whatsoever. And that's to do with stress. But the getting off to sleep, getting off to sleep can be caused by stress as well, because you've got things going on in your mind, and it's hard to stop it, the whirring around and the constant revisiting of your thoughts. But for a lot of people, the getting off to sleep is like 2 or 3 hours, and that could be because they've not got enough melatonin. And you can get it free from sunlight rather than a tablet.
Yeah, well, I definitely have a better night's sleep after if I've spent more time outside. It's interesting. I had a terrible night's sleep last night. I think for me at the moment, it's my age is affecting the way that I sleep. Getting hot and cold. But I just couldn't sleep very well last night. It wasn't particularly a hot and cold issue. My jaw was hurting. Felt as though my jaw was tense for some reason. But yeah, I would probably have drifted. I think when people say I didn't get any sleep, I think you perhaps do, but you drift, and you're just constantly aware of not having a decent night's sleep. So this morning I am more of a lark normally. Didn't want to get up this morning because I was a bit sleep deprived. I mean, normally once I've been up, I'm fine within sort of 15-20 minutes, but you know, it creeps up on me, I'm sure, the following night. But yeah, you know, the fresh air is something, connecting with your senses when you're outside, just listening to birds and that sort of thing. I've got a book here. I don't know if you've heard of a guy called Clemens Harvey.
No.
He's no longer with us, unfortunately. He had an accident, I believe, out in nature. But it's called the Healing Code of Nature. So he draws on quite a lot of scientific research and delves into sort of ancient what's the word, rituals and things like that. But he talks a lot about the tarpines, which are these little chemicals emitted from trees and plants, and how that helps you just from a well-being point of view. And there's studies about cancer patients and all sorts of things where they've done trials with people going outside, one in the city, one in nature, inside compared to outside, and all of the benefits just from well-being are so much higher when people have had that connection, that what's the word I'm looking for? See, age, it's gone. Experience, of nature. So yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? And you know, you mentioned just, Jill, about, you know, these thoughts whirring in our head as well when we get to sleep. So for me, if anything like that, and I get up in the middle of the night if that becomes a problem, and just write them down. So from a writer's point of view, and I love reading as well, you know, what sort of benefits can writing and reading have on sleep?
Huge amount. So especially for those people that are worrying or have got lots of thoughts going through their head, and it's stopping them going off to sleep or staying asleep, it can have a massive impact. It's just really good, even if you are a good sleeper, to get some of your thoughts down. And actually the evenings can be good for some people. Some people like to do that journal in the morning. But if you're somebody that's finding it hard to get off to sleep and stay asleep, doing that journaling at night before you go to bed, putting some time aside to do your worrying and get it on paper, so you don't have to constantly go, have I remembered it? Have I remembered it? And I really advise people to have that journal in pen and paper rather than on their phones. I know the phones are really quick and easy, and if you forget something, it's really good because it's there and it's immediate. But when you're trying to process it and get it out of your head, writing it on pen and paper, there is a small bit of research around, and you'll probably know this better than me, Anna, that actually writing it down is better than typing it into a phone or a computer. That makes a big difference. But that bit that you said before, Anna, about you getting out of bed to do it is even better. So I would advise not just to have your pen and paper by the side of your bed so that you can do it, but that it's a little bit further away, so you actually have to get out of bed to do it. And I advise, because of that cycle I was talking of 90 minutes, you've probably woken up at a high energy moment, and it's going to be 45 minutes before you're at the bottom. So you've probably laid in bed for 10 or 15 minutes being anxious and frustrated, and go, right, now I'm going to get out, I'm going to write some stuff down, or I'm going to read something to calm my mind down. So then you've got another 20 minutes window in which to do that. So, but if you go beyond that and you go past your dip to catch a sleep, and you say you decide to journal or read for, I don't know, 40 minutes, 45 minutes, then you'll have missed your window to go to sleep. So knowing that actually, if you just journal for 20 minutes, just read a couple of chapters that last 20 minutes, and then get back into bed, you're going to get that next wave of sleep a lot better.
Yeah, so just being mindful of those periods of time. And yeah, and I think in the last couple of times that I got up and I actually came in here, you can just about see it in the corner. I've got a big bean bag down here, which is it's actually supposed to be a gaming bean bag, but it's quite comfy just to sit in with a book and write. So yeah, I came and did some scribbles. I'd got all sorts of things going on in my head, so I just, you know, I've got a clipboard with scrap paper, and I wrote them all down. And then the time before that, I actually went downstairs and I made myself a herbal tea. I forget which one it was now. Something which was, you know, quite herbally and smelt nice. And I had a little read of a couple of articles in a magazine called Happyful. I don't
Oh,
know if
I've
you've
got that.
heard of it. Yeah, it's lovely, isn't it? I
Yeah.
love the graphics and things in there. So I read a couple of articles of that, had a little drink, and yeah, I felt calmer. And I think when you said there, you might lie in bed for 10, 15 minutes and you're frustrated the fact that you've woken up or you feel as though you can't get to sleep properly, then it just brought me into that nice, fuzzy little phase again, ready to go back to sleep.
I always have to correct myself when I say 10 minutes of feeling frustrated. I don't mean clock watching. I mean that bit about being just inwardly aware that I'm suddenly getting frustrated and probably my adrenaline's beginning to kick in and my cortisol because I'm that annoyed that I haven't got to sleep. Because I don't ever want anybody to be clock watching until you're doing that 20 minutes of an activity that relaxes you. That's the only time in a night that I suggest you put a timer on rather than look at your watch. So you don't even know what time of the night it is. You just know that you're going to do a 20-minute exercise to catch the next wave.
Yeah, I've got this here, which is just like a little stop clock of up to an hour, and it's steady, so you just turn it. It's called 25/7.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's what the make is
25/7.
called.
Yeah, I think so.
I'm going
That's
to
what it
buy
says in
one.
here. Yeah, and my partner bought it for me as a present once. Just because again, when you're writing, it's good to write in sprints of certain time periods. So some people say 20 minutes, some people say half an hour. Again, I say it's whatever works for you, the same as you with getting the sleep. But yeah, that works for me, because if I know I've got a meeting but I want to finish something, I don't particularly clock watch. I'll just turn that and think, okay, well, I've got 20 minutes, and then it gives me 10 minutes before I need to prepare for something else. And it's a nice, easy way of, not to, because I think you can stress if you clock watch, can't you? Because you're counting down.
Yeah. And then you're looking at how much time you've lost or how much time you've not benefited from. You start making all sorts of extra calculations that aren't necessary, aren't helpful to you in that moment.
Yeah. It's a fascinating subject, and it's something that we could talk about
Oh my God.
forever, isn't it, really? Is there any sort of key things that you think people, apart from waking up and feeling tired and throughout the day, but are there any other things that you can sort of signpost people to look out for, or maybe some some sort of quick tips that might work for the majority of people?
Yeah, so I always say that sleep hygiene is the same as dental hygiene and hand hygiene. So for a sleep problem, you still need to do sleep hygiene, just like you would if you had needed root canal treatment. You'd still brush your teeth and floss and eat food that's good for your teeth, and same for hand hygiene. A tummy bug, still wash your hands. But people don't know what sleep hygiene is. So that first one that I talked about getting enough daylight in the day, is one of them. The second one is making sure your bedroom is cool at night and warm in the morning. So that bit about teenagers, and trying to get them out of bed in the morning. If you whack your heating on or throw a blanket on them, that will get them out of the bed quicker. Why don't people tell their kids and parents these things? It is amazing what a difference it can make. I don't know if you've ever noticed that in the summer, you're more willing to get out of bed, aren't you? By
Yes.
far. And then, yeah, like you said before, have a nice routine, a healthy routine, and you know yourself well that whether you're a morning person or a night person. I'm an owl, so I will always prep loads the night before so I can do the least in the morning possible. And whereas you're probably the opposite. So knowing what you are and setting your routine for you, not just for your job or your personal circumstances as much as possible. I mean, I've had 2 kids and an NHS job, so I know I can't be fully flexible. I can now, and it is harder as we get older to be as fully flexible as we used to be. So it's good that I can be in tune with who I am a bit more now. And then the last one is to make sure you eat the right nutrients. A really healthy, balanced diet. And today, modern life has not got enough magnesium in it, and we're only beginning to think that maybe magnesium has got a big part to play in sleep. We're not sure what it is yet, but lots of us clinicians are noticing that if our clients take magnesium, then it will improve. And I think it's something like 80% of the population in Europe or the UK haven't got enough magnesium.
Wow.
So yeah, so there are some other nutrients that would be useful, but just making sure you don't do the coffee too late in the day, you do it in the morning, alcohol, things like that. So yeah,
Yeah.
real basic stuff.
Yeah, it is basic stuff when you think about it, isn't it? I mean, I don't really drink that much alcohol. I'm not teetotal. I'll have the odd drink if it's a celebration, but yeah, but I do. I'm like you. I like coffee, but I've switched to decaf. I don't know if it may. I don't
Mhm.
know if you might tell me that it may not make much of a difference. But I switched to decaf probably 3 4 months ago.
Mhm.
And I personally don't think it tastes any different, but I do put oat milk in, and I think quite often you can taste the oat milk
Yeah.
more so in a coffee than probably tastes different if I just had normal milk. But what I notice is if I have something to eat after a certain time and it's stodgy food, if it's carby food, or if I have a pudding, which I don't always have, then yeah, I don't get off to sleep as well because I'm full. My body's probably still working to maybe a certain extent to, break the food
Right.
down,
Yep.
possibly.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I know I don't always do it, but I know what I need to do to
Yeah.
get a good night's sleep from a food point of view, I would say.
And I think that's it. I think once somebody tells you the facts, you can go, oh my gosh, that makes complete sense. A bit like your bowel stuff I was talking about before. But until you talk about it and it's pointed out, it's not obvious. Or until you spend time thinking about your body, it doesn't make sense. So lots of people say to me, so if you need cool at night, why would you have a bath? And I say, well, because when you think about getting out of the bath, what happens as you get out of the bath is your skin gets a sudden rush of cold air because it's had nice warm air. So what happens is that cold feeling on your skin slowly translates into the rest of your internal body parts. So you get an intense cooling feeling. So a warm bath, it's not that you want to be warm at night by getting in a warm bath, but it's that intense, fast cooling feeling that's useful to us. It's a bit like the sun going down when we were cavemen and cave women.
Yeah.
But it takes our internal organs a little bit longer. So often I say, don't have a bath just before you go to bed, have one 2 hours before, because it takes a while. And the same for food, like you said, it takes 2 hours for your food to be digested and for your stomach not to be doing stuff. And if your stomach's got a clock, it'll be sending a message to that grandfather clock to say, can't be bedtime yet, because I'm still digesting.
Yeah, I'm still
Yeah.
working. Leave me
Yeah.
alone.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting what you say about baths. Because I do quite like having a bath at night, but I perhaps don't leave it 2 hours, maybe an hour
Mhm.
before. So I'll have to trial that and see if I
Yeah.
can get an earlier one in. But a thought that came into my mind when you were talking about that, Jill, was I don't do it so much anymore, but as a child, I often used to go to bed with a hot water bottle. So that might not be the right thing to do then, am I guessing?
I suppose as a child, you're wanting comfort, aren't you? And a sense of
Mm,
security and safety. So quite often when I worked with the mums and their babies, the minute the parent stops holding the baby and they put it into the crib, they start crying again. So we would teach them actually it's the warmth of the body as well as everything else, and the fact that they're snuggled up that's really useful. So we would put a hot water bottle on their crib and then take it off. So when the baby's laid down, it's nice and cozy warm. So it is that kind of feel. And if you've got cold feet and you need a hot water bottle, so you're not awake because you're thinking about your cold feet, then just do it. So there's like a second element to it about everybody's circulation being different. I didn't ever used to wear bed socks, but I quite often wear them now. I think people's circulation changes as we get older as well. So it's again an individual preference, but as human beings, we wanted to be kept warm by our mums, so it makes complete sense. We don't want to, you don't want to ever damage a child by leaving the hot water bottle that's too hot with them. As baby, you'd want to warm the sheet slightly so it's got a cozy, warm feeling to it. But you would never leave a baby with a hot water bottle, or a child. But as they get older, they can cope with moving a hot water bottle away from their body as and
mm.
when they feel like they've got the warmth and the comfort from it that they wanted.
Yeah, when they
It's a
start
nice
to get
feeling, isn't it, as a
it
child?
is, it
And
is. Yeah.
then,
Yeah, and it makes a lot of sense from a physiological point of view, but also a psychological point of view, because that's
mhm,
sort of where we came from, and having that warmth, there's that nurturing aspect. But I did laugh when you talked about feet, because I go to bed with socks on, and at some point during the night they get kicked off.
yeah, yeah. And my
Yeah.
legs stick outside.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
My natural thermometer.
Yeah. At the moment, I'm sort of throughout the night, I might be half in, half out, and then all out, and then all in. Oh, it's funny, isn't it? But
For sure.
yeah, I think also a good thing, which I used to do, which I haven't done for a long time actually. I'll have to start doing it again. Is when I wake up in the morning, making a note of how I've slept and any feelings around that. Because I think over time, if you did something like that, you would start to realize, oh well, I ate after that, or I had that I don't normally have, or maybe I had this drink, or that happened throughout the day. And maybe, over time you start to notice those trends that you can then work with and make different
Oh
changes
my gosh,
about.
Anna, that is like the best. That's what I would ask somebody to do, is not a sleep diary, but a day and night diary, because we want to catch what's happening during the day that's affecting our sleep at night. So yeah, it's that journaling in the morning to reflect on the day before that can make a difference to what you can apply the next time. And even simple things like, for one young lady, and I ask people to keep so if somebody goes to a sleep specialist and they're not sure if they're a specialist, if they ask them to keep a diary for a week, then I'd say they're just guessing. You need a diary for at least a month, especially if you're working with a woman, because she's got her menstrual cycles taken into account, as well as our changing lifestyles. It's not so easy to capture what we need to capture in a week or even 2 weeks. So I'll often work with people for several weeks and they will keep a diary throughout. And lots of people, like you just said, keep it for the rest of their life, because it's just interesting and important that we know what's happening to our body. So for one, the lady I was just talking about, she worked out that actually, and when she was a certain part in her cycle, her menstrual cycle, she was hotter and she couldn't cope with the heat of her partner as well as her own heat. So she was thinking about, shall I have two separate mattresses? Shall I have some extra blankets on his side and my side, and then I can throw them off like we were talking about, sticking our legs out? Or should I use a spare room? And then she even said, well, we're thinking of moving house, so we're thinking of having a house with a spare bedroom, so we could do that. I was like, that's just like somebody that's really prioritizing their sleep.
Yeah.
But yeah, they haven't got to the point of selling their house yet. So at the moment they're working on the fact that they've bought two single mattresses so that her heat isn't affected by his. And then at other times in the month it's not a problem. So she doesn't get obsessed by the fact, oh, my sleep's gone chronic again. Oh, it's just a few nights that it's going to be difficult, because we are, as humans, made to be flexible. We were made to have a couple of nights poor sleep and then be able to catch up on the third night.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think just accepting that that's the way that it is, that it's not going to be perfect every single night. You can't expect things to, well, perfect's not a thing, is it? You can't be perfect. But yeah, I think I am the same as your client there. I do get a lot hotter in certain times of the month and feel as though I have to kind of push Neil away.
Yeah.
Because he is like a furnace sometimes, and then others is not.
Yeah. But those silly watches that say they're measuring your sleep don't measure your heat, do they? They're not very good. We're much better off going what we know about our bodies. We're better at interpreting what's going on for us than, and I say, take all those gadgets off. Do not wear them at night.
Yeah, just be natural as you,
Yeah.
and pay
Yes.
attention to what's happening with you. Yeah, best advice. So Jill, we've talked for a lot. I think we've touched on a lot of good stuff that people can take away with them and learn from and try and implement as well. But how can people reach you? What's the best way for people to reach you, to find out more, to contact you if they need some help and some support?
Oh, there's quite a few little ways. So I have a website called sleepbetterdoctor.co.uk, so they can have a look on there, and there's a call to action button on there, so they can send an inquiry form. I offer 15 minutes free consultation, because sometimes there's some simple tweaks that people need to make, or they need to be pointed in another direction of an expert in another area that's essential. So I offer that. And then I am on LinkedIn as Dr. Jill McGarry, so Jill with a J and McGarry with a double R. But there is only one Dr. Jill McGarry on there, so you won't be scrolling through a load of names to find me. So yeah, those are the two of the main ways, but I actually give out my mobile number. So people sometimes send me a text saying, can I book into a 15 minutes free call? So my number's 07768 068 070. And we can have that chat, or they can book into a call, or companies, HRs and wellbeing professionals often book me for their companies to talk about sleep, whether they're shift workers or a whole range of people, top managers that are stressed out. And we'll organise a wellbeing half hour or a whole day for them, depending on what they're looking for.
Yeah, and that's great from an employee point of view, isn't it? To know that their place of work and their employers are concerned about their well-being, and have someone like yourself come in and talk and share some strategies and tips with them. So we'll share all of those things in the show notes, so that people can click through to your website, give you a call if they want to, drop you an email. What's next for you, Jill? Is there anything sort of happening 2025?
Oh gosh, so I'm just in the beginning of my journey. So I only left the NHS 12 months ago. So I've done all the basics now. I've done my website, got my banners, got my business cards, got my website. So yeah, I think the next thing is just building up on the work that I do with different client groups, different companies, and it's going to be really exciting. I've got a couple of opportunities to be an ambassador and to run some really good wellbeing sessions.
Yeah, perfect. So yeah, if people look at your website, no matter what time they listen to this or come to your website, you'll have some other ways that people can connect with you, whether you're speaking at events or you're at events, that people can come and talk to you. So brilliant. So you're based in Cheshire. Am I right in thinking that you work with people online as well as
Usually
face to face?
Yeah. So I've got a couple of international clients, definitely work with people in London. The world's such a smaller place, isn't it, today? But I do love working face to face. If I work face to face, I can do a lot more interactive workshops than I can do if it's on Zoom. But yeah, I try and make it all fun and memorable.
Yeah, and it helps you as well, doesn't it, to not just have everything in one method. I think it helps us to spice things up a little bit and get out and about and see people online and face to face. It all helps with the day. So I've had such a pleasure talking to you, Jill. I've learned quite a few things. I've made some notes myself down here, and we'll share some more in the show notes. So and somebody's barked in the background. Somebody's woken up from their sleep.
Yeah, if we could all sleep like dogs.
Perfect. So yeah, thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the podcast.
No, thank you very much, Anna. It was great. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you for listening to today's Writing with Purpose podcast. Having conversations with fellow writers or adventure enthusiasts brings two of my biggest loves in life together, writing and nature connection. I've been a copywriter and content creator for 23 years, but my passion is writing for well-being, and I'm on a mission to share the benefits that putting pen to paper has for personal wellness with as many people as possible. If you want to learn more about writing for your well-being and journaling techniques, please connect with me in my Facebook group, Journaling with Anna.